and inspiring.
I was just telling Mark that if I get to the point where I have trouble making it on that step, I'll probably conclude my ministry at the. But I'm okay today. Better than I was last time I spoke here, so I'm getting younger. Several years ago, actually many years ago, obviously many years ago, I was in Boston to run the marathon. And Jim and Gail Connolly were hosting me. I was staying with them. Jim was a good friend, and he was on an athletic scholarship, same as I was, to St. Joseph's in Philadelphia. And I'm actually dedicating my service here today to Jim. He's working his way through some cancer problems, and I hope he makes it. So he's in my prayers all the time. But he was a great guy. He was a great runner. He was also an expert on remembering all events and times. He could tell me times that I ran in high school, and we didn't go to the same high school. And a few years ago, he was the one that told me that when the NCAA, the National Collegiate Athletic Association, upgraded cross country to a major sport. It was a minor sport when I was in college. When they upgraded to a major sport, they went back and said anyone who finished in the top 25 of the national championships would be declared an All-American. So, and I did that a couple years, that I went out to the nationals. But that was just a few years ago, and it was too late to add it to my resume. And so I mention it today to get a little mileage out of it. I arrived at Boston a couple days before, and the Connollys took me for a drive through the course from Hopkinton down through Commonwealth Almanac, down to the Prudential Building in downtown Boston. And when we got back to the house, there were a couple of notes on the kitchen table from their two boys. One was from Tommy, and it read, I have gone over to Harry's house, and I should be back about 5:30. And the other one from Jimmy, the older, and he said, I have gone out to seek the true meaning of life. I should be back about 6. The true meaning of life, and that's what I'm going to talk about today. We all want to know from time to time what is the true meaning of life. Right from our very birth. I had a birthday a couple weeks ago. I'm starting into my 90th year. Isn't that interesting? I feel great, by the way. Look pretty good, too, huh? Thought I'd mention that. But, from our very birth, I've always honored, I've always thought that when we had a birthday, we really should honor our mother. What did we do? But I got to reading some time ago about all the disruption that the child in the womb goes through. Hadn't really thought about that. But, in their nice, comfortable, warm, and pleasant place. As far as we know, no consciousness then, so we didn't have to worry about anything. And then all of a sudden, things start to happen. A little movement going on. Here's some screaming, pushing and pulling, and suddenly somebody's got a hold of your head and is dragging you out. didn't know where out was. And you get out, and you don't know how to breathe because you never did that before. So somebody turns you upside down, pats you on the back, and you start gulping the strange thing inside you, and your life begins. You must wonder from the very beginning, having gone through all that, what is all the meaning? What is the true meaning of life? You started thinking about it right off from the very beginning. And then as you go through life, there are times when you want to get back in the womb, isn't there? In fact, a lot of guys, I shouldn't mention this, perhaps I was guilty myself. It was my first wife. If I am, I apologize. But too often I think a guy will find a mate to be a mother. And that is a really terrible thing to do to a woman. To go back in the womb, no. She's more than your equal. We have other ways of hiding from that, trying to figure out the true meaning of life. Just one of it just happens to be alcohol. It's a way of hiding, but that's a talk for another day. There's a wonderful book by Bishop Spong. I don't know if you've read any of his things. I have about 7 of his books. He spoke to our Unity conference several years ago, and I remember him saying that, 2 years ago I never heard of Unity, and now I think I am one. So he was pretty radical as a Episcopal bishop, and that's why he felt so close to Unity, I guess. In fact, he told us that they once took a vote of all the bishops, all the Anglican bishops, as to whether or not he would remain the bishop. And they said it was very close. And he said he abstained because he really wasn't quite sure himself. He was a great guy. But he wrote a book called Born of a Woman, talking about Jesus, of course, and describes the legacy of Mary, which was mostly written by men in Scripture. It was written by men. It's kind of one of the beginnings of the suppression of women. Mary had to be born a virgin, not born a virgin, but be a virgin to give birth. It's almost setting her, she just was a vehicle for which it happened. And there's not much said about Mary, except she was around, she knew what was going on. It says at one point, it's a beautiful statement, she saw these things and pondered them in her heart. And that's why I think the other Mary, Mary Magdalene, is getting so much play, so much written about her, and there's groups being made, because she played a more active role. And the more active the role women play in the world, the better off we will be. You heard it here. In fact, I was in giving a class one time, and one of the ladies said, I think women are the solution to the world. And I said, I fully agree. I just wish they'd hurry. Bishop Spong wrote a book called Born of a Woman. Again, it's about Jesus. And I like to think about Jesus as being birthed through Mary as pretty easy, that he probably just slipped out, little nod to the doctor or nurse, his mother, thanks, Mom, good job. But it probably wasn't that way at all. He probably had to go through the same pain and disruption that we all do. Jesus didn't come to be a superstar. He came to be an example to us. He didn't ask to be worried. He just said, follow me, follow the things that I do. So his birth was probably pretty much the same as our own. And I think even for Jesus at the very beginning, he must have wondered, what is the true meaning of life? But he caught on to it much faster than all of the rest of us. Charles Fulmer, our co-founder, said that, Jesus was the same as us, but he seemed to have a leg up. Love that horseman's term. He seemed to have a leg up. Yeah. So many songs have been written about the true meaning of life and all the words written about it. But they pose more questions than they do answers. I was taught by the Jesuits at St. Joe's. The Jesuits were great scholars of the church, have always been. But even with them, it seemed to, so many things conveniently came back to, it's a mystery. It's a good thing to do when somebody questions you about something and just say, it's a mystery. It's just out there. The afterlife seems to give us a little release from the necessity of answering that question, what's life about? Most of us, I hope, have given up the thought that life is a test and that the reward is heaven. So that's all you're here for, is taking tests. I hate tests. The reward is heaven, and if you fail the test, supposedly you go somewhere else. It is unpleasant. But we don't believe in that. We don't believe in hell anymore, do we? No, we don't, no. And I always say that if somebody even questions you about that, say, we don't believe in hell, so if you ever get there, don't bother looking me up. I won't be there. Had an Irish Catholic priest up in Grass Valley one time doing a memorial, said something that pleasantly shocked me. And that's what he said. He says, when you get up there to heaven, he says, the first thing you're going to want to do is start apologizing to God for all the stuff you did. He says, and I think God will just say, I don't know what you're talking about. Come on in, have a good time. And I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm kind of banking on that. Playing heavily on it. Life is a series of tests, challenges, come and go. We all do the best we can today, I hope, and let tomorrow be tomorrow. There's always that traditional story, and probably could be true, that St. Patrick chased all the snakes out of Ireland. And there seems to be no snakes in Ireland to this day. But there was one snake remaining, and Patrick, being glib of tongue, was able to talk the snake into hiding in Loch Nago, and on the promise that he would be released upon the morrow. And it said that children passing by the loch from time to time see a snake raise its head above the water and cry out, "Is this the morrow?" And of course it never is it? It is never, never the morrow. It's a waste of time, really, to and precious energy to condemn ourselves. Life is not a test, but it's good to know that no one of any importance is keeping score except yourself. So be kind to yourself. You are the best you that ever was. In fact, I think that would be a good affirmation. I am the best me that ever was. Let's say that together. I am the best me that ever was. Congratulations. You're great. So we spend a lot of time worrying about things like that. And of course, in Miracles says that guilt is always insane, a state of mind that prevents normal perception and behavior. Life happens the way it's supposed to. How do we know? It happened that way. It's the way it happened. There's a wonderful poem which I have hopefully committed to memory from time to time because it's very meaningful to me. It was written by Martha Smock, who was one of the early great women of unity. She was in charge of Silent Unity for many years. And there's a wonderful story, true story, about Unity Villages kind of in the tornado alley that comes through. And one time there was a tornado heading for Unity Village, and Martha Smock ran out into the field and said, "Get the hell out of here." And it did. It went the other way. And Unity Village has never had a problem with tornadoes since that very day. It worked. But she wrote this poem called No Other Way. Could we but see the pattern of our days, we should discern how devious were the ways by which we came to this present time. And we would see the climb our souls have made up through the years. We should forget the hurts, the wanderings, the fears, the wastelands of our life, and know we could have come no other way and grow into our good without these steps our feet found hard to take, our soul found hard to make. The road of life goes on, from bend to bend, until we come to know that life is endless and that we forever are inhabitants of all eternity. Great poem, worth committing to memory. We could have come no other way and grow into the good, our good, without these steps our feet found hard to take. So if you're not happy with the way your steps have taken you, it doesn't make any difference. So you might as well forgive it and forget it. Move on. Doesn't mean anything. You could have come no other way. It's the way it was. Believe that? Nodding of heads, please. If you're nodding of heads. Thank you. And so we just now, today, this day, this present time, move forward trusting and fearless. In fact, again, the Course in Miracles says, if you knew who it was who walked beside you on the path that you have chosen, fear would be impossible. So I've always loved about the Course in Miracles. It's very definite. Fear would be impossible if you knew who it was who walked beside you every step of the way. Good to know. Still, we want to know, what is the true meaning of life? It keeps coming up. Let's look what Charles Fulmar, co-founder, had to say about life. He says, life is not in itself intelligent. It requires the directive power of an entity that knows where and how to apply its force in order to get the best results. Who do you suppose that entity is? Life does not emanate from the mind. It is not psychic or a purely mental quality, nor does it spring from the physical. The river of life is within humankind in their spiritual consciousness. Life depends on an understanding of the science of right thinking. The science of right thinking. You all are scientists. Did you know that? Good to know. Kathleen Norris is another, she was a Presbyterian minister and written many books. I have several of them. Wrote a book called Amazing Grace, a vocabulary of faith. And she was writing about seekers, which is what we are in Unity. We call ourselves true students. I once was getting a tour of a monastery up in Kansas City, and the abbot was leading us around, and he said, you know, I give tours all the time to Protestants, Episcopalians, and he says, what do we call you people? I said, we're true students. He thought that was one of the funniest things he ever heard. Laughed about that the rest of the way around. But that is what we are. We are true seekers all the time. And this is what Kathleen Morris said. I have learned two things in my religious quest. First of all, that it is God who is seeking me and has a myriad way of finding me. Second, that my most substantial life advances and understanding of life came from other people, even when at times when I felt God was absent in my life. Others had a way of suddenly revealing God's presence. We need each other more than we are willing to admit. Even those others that from time to time disturb us, even they can reveal the very presence of God when we're looking at it through loving eyes, and help us to understand the very meaning of life. But to go back to my Jesuit professors and life is a mystery, the more we try to figure life out, the further it seems to escape us. It's like a beautiful leaf that's blowing in the wind, and we keep trying to chase it, and we keep our eye on it, but it keeps getting further away. But we continue to chase it. We who are chasing the answers to life are the answer to life. The answers that we are chasing, it's us. And in our efforts, sometimes we get on our own way. We know about that. We cannot solve the mystery of life because we are the mystery. We cannot solve the mystery, we can only live the mystery. And you can only do that by fully being yourself. That's all you have to be, yourself. Let's do that affirmation again. I am the best me that ever was. Together, I am the best me that ever was. That's all you need. You didn't even have to come here this morning. But I'm glad you did. Glad you did. Have we been wasting our time chasing our own tail? No matter, remember, we could have come no other way than this. And now we are here in this present moment, using the Spirit God that came with us, is built in us, as us, is us, and practicing the science of right thinking, as Fillmore suggests, we joyfully go on with the rest of our life, the rest of it. Life, this present life, is endless, and we are now and forever inhabitants of all eternity. And that, my dear friends, is very, very good news. And I'm happy to be here this morning to share it with you. God bless all here and all those with whom we are.
Thank you, Joe. And I'd like to continue with the idea of the true meaning of life, because I believe I found it here in the Bible. So if you would like to close your eyes, we'll use this as our meditation. And I'm sure that you all are familiar with this, but perhaps it's been a while since you've heard it. It's 1 Corinthians 13, my favorite. So if you'd like to just relax in your seats for a moment and let these words wash over you, with your eyes closed if that's comfortable for you. If I speak in the tongues of mortals and of angels, but do not have love, I am a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. And if I have prophetic powers and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and have not faith, so as to remove mountains, but do not have love, I am nothing. If I give away all my possessions, and if I hand over my body so that I may boast, but do not have love, I gain nothing. Love is patient, love is kind. Love is not envious or boastful or arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice in wrongdoing, but rejoices in the truth. It bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never ends, but as for prophecies, they will come to an end. And as for tongues, they will cease. as for knowledge, it will come to an end. For we know only in part, and we prophesy only in part. For when the complete comes, the partial will come to an end. When I was a child, I spoke like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. And I put an end to my childish ways. For now we see in a mirror dimly, but when we will see face to face, no, now I know only in part, then I will know fully, even as I have been fully known. And now faith, hope, and love abide, these three things, and the greatest of these is love. Just for a moment, I'd like us to feel that love that we are, that we have been told that God created us in the image and likeness of God. And we know that God is love. Therefore, we too are love. We are created as this loving nature that sometimes is so hidden. We put so many layers of fear on top of the love that we no longer recognize it. We want to feel that love within ourselves, and we want to see it in others. God is love, therefore I am love. Let's say that together. God is love, therefore I am love. And just for a moment, we'll think of some family members or friends that we have so much love for and bring them into our circle. And also we want to bring in those that we find annoying, those that we argue with, any television people that we have trouble with, we're going to draw them into our circle. Because God is love, therefore they are love. Together. God is love, therefore they are love. God is love, therefore we are love. Charles Fillmore was so inspired to name this organization Unity. For in unity, love is expressed. And we're so blessed to be part of that. God is love, therefore we are love. Together. God is love, therefore we are love. Love is. The book Course of Love tells us that. Love is. But we must love purely. And what does it mean to love purely? It means to love without expectation, to love without expecting reward or approval, to just love. So for a moment, let's take this into the silence, to just love. Thank you, God, that this true meaning of life is for us the love that we are. And so it is.